What's up, DWA fam? This is Asia here to remind you that if you like this podcast, go ahead and hit subscribe, give us a rating, or leave a review. We appreciate y'all listening and hope you enjoy the episode.
Yo.
I'm so excited about today's episode. I can't even.
I think we just get into it. We don't even need to do oh, how you been?
No, we're not doing that today because it's too good. We need all the time in the world for this because we've been trying to make this happen basically since last summer.
Yeah, I mean, basically since Black Lives Matter has always been here.
But since we popped off.
Yeah, it's popped off. All of a sudden, a lot of white people all of a sudden started understanding what was going on and reaching out to black folks, things like that. So, obviously, you see there's a lot of protest. There's a lot of, I don't want to say animosity, but the relationship between, I guess, the black community and police officers isn't very strong. I mean, I don't think it's really been that strong since I've been alive. So we wanted to bring on a police officer. So we actually found one who was willing to speak truthfully and just real and from the heart. And he also happens to be black. So I think we're going to get or kind of both perspectives, as a black person and as a black police officer. We're not going to say his name. We're not going to try to
remain anonymous.
Keep his identity unknown, just so he could be as truthful and transparent as possible. So we hope you enjoy this.
Yeah. So welcome, anonymous
Mr.
guest,
Officer. I'm gonna call you Mr. Officer.
Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
Just welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Quick disclaimer, just in case my identity is revealed, these are the opinions of myself and not my respective department, just so you know.
So, I guess let's just get into it. My first question is going to be, so this is going to be like conversational as always. So yeah, you're a police officer. What made you want to become a police officer?
That was going to be my first question.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, how did you get into it?
It wasn't something that I set out on as a young man, or like I looked up to him when I was younger. This journey started from watching Dog the Bounty Hunter. Literally Dog the Bounty Hunter. I wanted to be a bounty hunter. It had nothing to do with policing. I just wanted to basically play, where can I find this guy at, and go get him, just like Dog the Bounty Hunter did. Obviously, I went to college and learned that criminal justice is not just about being Dog the Bounty Hunter from there.
It's a little bit different.
My next segue was, it's totally different. And actually, I would need to have more of a stable type of job than trying to collect bounties. And also in the Northeast, that's just not a thing, really. Yeah, he was somewhere. I don't know. He was everywhere, but not anywhere where I lived. So getting to college, I went to the next closest thing, which was, I want to be in the U.S. Marshals there, Fugitive Task Force. Then I did that internship, and then it turned out what it seemed to be, you're in the office most of the time. To my surprise, when you're working for the federal government, law enforcement. And then from there, kind of got lost just a little bit. I lost my passion for law enforcement because nothing that I was getting into turned out to be what it actually was.
Did you want that like adrenaline rush?
It was never. Not necessarily. I just like the teamwork aspect of it and the fact that I was active. I didn't want to sit at a desk, and I wasn't as, when you're in college, you're kind of in a bubble.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to expand my mind to think like, me being not wanting to be at a desk necessarily might mean, I just want to travel, or set up business meetings outside of the office. Like me now looking back, I probably would have been doing something in maybe business if I was able to grasp that concept of me sitting in a desk doesn't mean necessarily I need to be chasing people. But it wasn't necessarily about an adrenaline rush. I think that kind of just went over my head, the fact that I'm putting my life in danger in some aspects with the law enforcement job. I didn't consider that. That wasn't a consideration for me. But more or less, basically, I fell into becoming a police officer. It was just someone who went to school with me saying, hey, you should apply. I think you'll be good at it. And they were right. So right now, I can say I'm a police officer because I'm good at it, and I changed lives for the better usually when I get on.
Yeah, no, that's dope.
Okay, so I get now that we understand how you became a police officer, I guess we can just dive right into the hard questions, which my first hard question, I feel like, or a question that I've wanted to ask a Black police officer for a while is what, I guess, is it like for you who you have a job to protect your community? You're also a Black man. As Jared mentioned, there is a lot of friction between the relationship of police officers and Black people. So what does it mean for you as a Black police officer to, like, how does that change the way you show up in your community, the way you do your job, and also like the way you host conversations outside of your job? Like, is it just like all the time consuming your life? I feel like it consumes our lives on social media, so I can't imagine how a Black cop would be dealing with it, I guess.
Well, one of the main things, when I first saw that question, I'm just like, I always get this. And it's just weird to me because it's just like the Black community and policing is so confrontational right now. When you see a Black police officer, you think it has to be split. Somehow they have to like separate one and the other. And it's tough for them to bring two together. I think the hardest part of being a Black police officer for me was it wasn't on the department or dealing with things on my job. It was more or less social media. If you notice, I'm off. I'm not on any social media anymore.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing I'm on is Pinterest.
Nobody can get to you on that.
You know why? No, I don't gotta hear nobody's opinions. I just get to look at things and get ideas for myself, and no one else gives me input on it. Yeah, and I got off social media, and it wasn't because I was like trying to hide from the public. I'm always out there. I don't care. It was more or less because I just got sick of seeing all these subjective ideals or jump to conclusions. And it's on both ends. I'm not just talking about one end, right? I'm talking about both ends. Just jump to conclusions on both ends of these issues. So I gotta say that's the toughest for me for that. On the job, I can speak to. I'm basically the Switzerland on my job when it comes to these issues. And it's not necessarily because I'm Black, but that is part of it. It's just because I can absorb these conflicting or ignorant or even sometimes maybe borderline racist opinions and not react so aggressively or with so much friction. I'll delve deeper into it because I want to see where the root of it is coming from. You know what I mean? I guess a good example is anyone like for like the George Floyd issue. Anyone coming out with even like a hint of like a opposing view or some kind of conflicting argument to the totality of the result of that situation. I imagine someone not me or anyone relative similar to me, personality-wise, reacting very strongly emotionally, one way or the other, if they hear something adverse to, the common agreement that he was on his back way too long. You know what I mean? So.
But I feel like that's a learned skill, right? Like being able not to
control your emotions.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a cop thing. I think it's like just a thing Black people learn to do is controlling your emotions in the workplace, specifically, especially around any political issue. So I feel like that's a learned skill, but I just know like that is a hard thing for me to do in the workplace, and my workplace is not in the middle of the issue at hand. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't work in law enforcement.
It's interesting you give that example. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. Like like with that question, like what's it like to be black and be a police officer? Well, it's probably the same as how it is for you in your workplace. It's not me being a police officer. Most of these issues with being black and being whatever role you are, it's probably similar. It's not going to be that much different. The difference is the impact to another person's life that my decisions make or someone else's decisions make while I'm at work. I think that's the big difference. And I think that's why that's such a big question that people always ask.
Mm.
But if you really look at it, it's probably the same things you deal with on a daily basis.
So was this like always the case, or when you first got into the role, did you feel a little different? Or you always felt like I'm the same person, there's no difference just because I'm black, and just learning how to control your emotions? Or was that something that you learned over time from being in the role?
Well, no. I've always controlled my emotions. You've only seen me a few times.
Never.
Outside of the. So she's saying never. I know Jared see me outside of that. You know, it's very rare for me to just be outside of myself.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not something I got from the job or I got from having to maneuver myself in the workplace. That's just my predisposition.
So you've always been like that. So yeah, I get you.
Can you tell me if this is a myth? Because I just want to clarify. Like I have this vision in my mind, and this is from social media, obviously. Why I have this vision in my mind.
We're making this a huge.
We're making it a big thing, and I think to people outside of the bubble of law enforcement, this is literally how I imagine going into work for you is. Like I imagine you go into work and you're the minority, and it's a day where another black person was just killed at the hands of a police officer. And so, you know, everything is really up here because I feel like we go like this, right? And so I imagine you walk into the workplace and everybody, all the other white police officers are all fired up, Blue Lives Matter.
It's like a normal day for them.
And yeah, they're like, oh, we're just here, Blue Lives Matter. And you have to go about your work in this Blue Lives Matter environment. This might not be how it is. I'm just telling you this is how I imagine it. So like, is that anything? Yeah, is there any truth? Because that's what I imagine, because that's what obviously we see on social media, people taking sides, blue lives, black lives, blah, 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 blah.
So that idea is probably 0.05% true. We're not worried necessarily about, Blue Lives Matter. We need to make sure this out is louder than Black Lives Matter. It's more of like, oh man, all right, when's the next protest? We're just getting ready for the next thing. That's the next protest that's going to happen. We're analyzing what actually happened,
right,
in the realm of the use of force, because now our use of force guidelines might change, and that's very important for us. You know what I mean? We don't have time to some guys. All right, I'm not going to speak. I'm not speaking for all of us, but the smart police officers aren't worried about the political implications of all these things that are happening. We're worried about more of the things that are going to actually affect our job and how we need to protect ourselves. And that's not necessarily meaning we were doing something wrong that whole time, but it's more or less what things do we need to improve upon or consider or keep doing. Great example is Minnesota with the taser incident, where she thought she had a taser in her hand, but she actually had a gun. So my first thing I'm thinking is, damn, I need to pull for my taser in the morning a couple more times to make sure I know which one I'm pulling before I even get into the situation of
I know it's a lot.
No, it's not. It's just in my head because I've heard people say like, "Oh, she pulled the taser, she pulled the gun on purpose and said taser on purpose to like cover it up."
Oh, really? I didn't hear that, but I did hear
saying that. But that's like, it happened so fast. Like it would have to be premeditated for that to be
Well,
the
yeah,
case.
my thing the thing I heard a lot too that confused me because I'm ignorant to guns in general, the difference between a gun and a taser. I have no idea. So for me, the thing that I heard that was like, oh, that kind of makes sense is how could she, as a trained police officer, not in the moment
Know the difference?
know the difference between a loaded gun and a.
So it's called tunnel vision, and there's another scientific word for it. I can't give it to you right now, but one is tunnel vision. So that's basically like when you're so focused in on what you're doing, you're not considering anything in your environment, and I need to do this and this and this, and that's it. I can't think outside of that box. They train us on how to get out of that, but once you're in it, so you have to already be doing what you need to do. The other thing, the scientific term, I don't remember it because when that incident happened, our department put out a scientific article on what probably most likely happened in that incident. Well, basically, what they were saying was you do something so much that in a situation where you have muscle memory, you might do that in preference to something else that you were supposed to do. So she may have practiced pulling her gun a million times more than she actually practiced pulling her taser. So when she got into an adverse situation, and she went to the most memorable bodily function that she used in lethal force self-defense. I'm not saying she meant for lethal force, but like whatever's on her belt, she meant to pull the tape, but she instead, since it's the same type of motion, although it's across body, it's not such a different deviation that she would recognize me, know, oh, when she's so hyped up like that, she would know, oh, I'm going cross body straight to the gun.
To shoot like you and officers bail. You guys were put in like high stress situations so frequently, like much more frequently than the normal person. A lot more, like you said, adverse situations. Do you feel a certain type of way when people just judge the actions of officers based on what they're seeing in the media because they don't even know what it's like to be in that type of situation, and they put what they think that officers should have done in like a split second? Like how do like police officers feel? I know y'all probably talk about it, but like how do y'all feel
We
about
imagine you talk about it at least.
I know guys on the job, they get pretty testy over it. It's just like y'all y'all outside of policing, y'all don't do this, so you definitely don't understand. Like just like if you were to tell someone like you don't understand what it is to be black in America.
Facts.
Yeah.
You don't understand how it is to be law enforcement. And I'm not saying that as like a like we're the minority in the situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just talking about the day-to-day things that we deal with. And I'm not saying we're necessarily getting a bad bargain. That's just a factual statement that the majority of people who aren't law enforcement won't understand them. They educate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean truly educate themselves. Not social media, like actual scientific articles or studies actually study police and police organizations.
Right.
It's out there. That's where criminal justice, that major is for, you know. But I don't want to get off of Jed's question. Go, just give me the tail end of that, Jed. I want to make sure you're just saying people judging.
People judging y'all for your actions in a split second, like highly stressful situation.
Yeah, personally, it doesn't. I expect it. That's just from my background. Like in sports, people always got something to say. Oh, you should have did this or that, or you wouldn't have scored, or you would have scored the goal touchdown. I don't give myself away, whatever. But
the goal.
I had to throw something in. You know what I mean? I had to throw. To other officers, I'll definitely say, yeah, it bothers them. It really irks them that people, because it's not like I would tell you how to do your job, or someone else how to do their job. So it's kind of like don't tell me how to do mine. I already have XYZ of administrative bosses to look on to me to look at me and judge me, judge my actions on a daily basis. Especially with the body cameras now. All they gotta do is go, oh, what did he do today? Let me click here and there.
This is you. I thought of this just because you were talking about your education in criminal justice. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, not all police officers like go to college for criminal justice before they become a police officer, I assume. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. My question is, when you were learning about criminal justice and like the systems and things that you were talking about, was racism a part of that educational conversation or no? Probably not, I assume, but just want to make sure.
Not.
Or race in general.
No. It necessarily was not. I imagine a curriculum can be created, but overall, it was more centered on the study of, like, I'm criminology, not technical criminal justice. So it was like a procedural law class, but it's criminology itself is focused on the study of criminals. You know, now if you want to get to the racial breakdown of criminals in particular locations or globally, that's massive. I don't know how you necessarily do that. I mean, like in America, I guess you could break it down, right? But that's just a massive project to go about. And then what aspects do you look at? Because to even tackle that, it's so hard not to. There's so many possible biases that you can run into.
Yeah. So I guess like being a police officer and seeing. So say if you see something, I don't want to say on the news, but obviously, I mean, that's where we see this stuff on at. But if you see another police officer across the country do something that I think 95% of normal people would say was totally wrong, do like you and other officers ever have that conversation about like how that could not happen in the future? Or if they were actually wrong, or is it just like you're desensitized to it, it's not your problem, didn't happen in your city or your town, so it's not that big of an issue? Or like, are there some emotions and feelings associated to that?
Oh, there's definitely emotions and feelings, especially when it's flat out wrong. You know, some of these situations aren't like they look bad, but it's not flat out necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
By the book, you mean?
Sometimes by the book looks ugly too. You know what I mean? Sometimes by the book looks ugly. You might think like, "Yo, this is wrong. How in the world is he or she able to do this?" But according to training or rules and regulations or how we're supposed to go about things, if it gets to that point, then that's just how it usually goes. And now that everything is advertised.
No, I was going to say, I get exactly what you're talking about, because me and Asia had this argument in the past about one situation where an officer killed somebody, and I was like, he rightfully did what he needed to do, and she was on the opposite side. And so I understand where you're going from that, but you continue, because you were going on to like when it was absolutely terribly wrong.
Yeah, so like absolutely terribly wrong. Like guys are gonna admit, yo, he or she ruined it for all of us. You know what I mean? They ruined it for all of us.
Like they know you have some heat coming your way now.
Yes, the notion of the bad apple theory is quickly deteriorating within. I know at least my department and most departments. It's not like we know. Like even if it's that bad apple, it's making the rest of our lives rotten at least.
Right. Like
it's going to affect us. Just like getting ready for protests or getting ready for adverse confrontations within the community. We know it's coming, you know, and we don't look forward to it. You know, it's not like guys are like, oh, here we go, it's going down. We can't wait. We can't wait to get out there to make it even worse, you know.
So when that happens, does that make you as a police officer police other officers, or no?
As in, like, if they say something like wild, like just checking them, or something, you mean something else? As in,
well, yeah, I mean, just checking them like verbally, or if you see them do something physically, like because you know that that's going to eventually come back on you and make your job harder, make your life more difficult. So does that make you want to make sure that police officers are doing exactly what they need to be doing the right way? Or does that not even like
Of
cross
course.
into minds?
And then, but there's another thing, and now we didn't have it in our policies before, but now we got a duty to intervene. So like if you see someone, um, now this is just our policy. I don't know about all departments across America. It should be in there, but it's a duty to intervene policy.
Wow.
So if you see someone doing something wrong, you have we're required to intervene now. Yeah. So these things are out there. It's just a matter of you gotta look for them. You know.
Well, I
And
think
if it's not there, then you just say, "Hey, go ahead."
no. I was just gonna say I think these things are out there, but like you said,
They should have been there.
well, they should have been there, but it's also departmental. Like your department decided to do that, whereas like that could be a policy that could be federally whatever. I don't even know how to even put it, but
I'm not saying it's new. I'm not saying this is necessarily new. You know what I mean? And even with my department, it probably was in there like a paragraph, but they never emphasized it in training.
And now that's something that's like,
being emphasized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask also, like, do you think there needs, like, I don't know the training that you guys go through, but do you think there needs to be more training, not only just for like how you interact with certain communities, but like also how you interact in adverse situations? Because I think what they said, police officers, for y'all to know the law, what is it, just like a few months in the academy?
So basically, when I applied, I put my application in. The whole process took a year. So I put the application in, and then they send out a notification to take the written examination. Everyone's written examination grades are different. That's different. You either pass or fail, you need to get a certain score. After the written examination, they do a physical examination. And then you got to pass that. You fail the physical examination, you're out. Right? And then after the physical, you get to I believe it's the psychological. So you have to take a whole test. And then they tell you if you're psychologically fit for the job. The psychological, they start the background investigation, or they actually start contacting you about the background investigation, like the interview. And then after the background, they actually gave us another physical to make sure we're still in shape. Mm-hmm. And then the academy starts. So through the academy, it's a 6-month long process. They teach you how to shoot, they teach you how to drive, they teach you tactics, they teach you state, federal, and local laws. And then they just teach you the nuances of becoming a police officer within the department. That's it.
Yeah, so I always see things on like it's like social media, obviously, which we're talking about, but like lawyers have to go through to school for so many more years after regular undergrad to learn the law and actually like deeply understand it. But for police officers, you just learn that very quickly in the academy, and you're the one out in the street actually enforcing it. So do you see where some people could have the disconnect on that?
Yes, but you got to understand something though. We're the entry point to the criminal justice system. Lawyers have to learn all that stuff because they're the correction point of it.
Gotcha.
I guess I got to put. You know what I mean? We're there to apply the law. We don't necessarily need to know about motion and filing and like we only need to know particular things to do our job specific to getting things under control. You know?
Yeah.
Like I don't need to know the number of jurors in a certain civil or criminal case, right? That's not going to help me my job in the field. You know, I need to be an expert on determining who the primary aggressor is in domestic violence situation. I need to know what primary aggressor is.
And de-escalating.
Yeah, de-escalate. I need to know use of deadly force when I'm legally obligated to use it. I need to know those type of things, not the nuances of what lawyers need to know. You know,
Like not the nuances of the actual
me,
law.
yeah. Imagine a police officer coming on scene and just going back and forth with case law after case law after case law, saying, "Oh, in this case this happened, and in that case that happened." So, what year did that happen? Because I'm not really sure what to do. Because based off of that case law, I can't arrest you. I can't arrest him because this guy was exonerated based off of I don't know, juror number 3 watching X, Y, and Z before trial or during trial. Imagine the police officer doing all that nonsense while baby mom is yelling at the dad for cheating and had a knife out or or just throwing stuff out of the window.
I have so obviously not obviously, but in a lot of situations where tragedy happens, people are killed and police officers are, basically what I feel like comes out of it is obviously as people, we all have bias. We all have unconscious bias. We have bias about our own races, other races, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like in a lot of these situations, right, where these tragedies happen, police officers are also scared in the situation, right? Like just because you're the experts doesn't mean you don't have a little bit of fear. But I guess for me, if I were going to propose some trainings or I don't even know if I would call them reformed, but just basic requirements for becoming police officers, I want you to tell me if my ideas are crazy or not, or if I'm even in the ballpark. But I feel like something that they could do is, aside from unconscious bias training, I mean, people's biases are so deep, it would take years to undo it all. But living in the community for a certain amount of time before you can become a police officer there. Because I feel like sometimes people are policing communities. Sometimes they're policing communities that they don't know anything about, right? Or
they've never interacted with those individuals.
Yeah,
before.
or requiring them to do stuff in the community for a certain amount of time to get to know the community. That's just one idea that I had to throw out there. There was another, but I can't remember. But how do you feel about that? Because I think in the best cases where you see these police officers who are really in touch with their communities and the people in the community look forward to seeing them, it's because they made a conscious effort to go out into the community and get to know the people who live there, right? Am I wrong, or is this just what I see on television?
Well, you're playing with a double-edged sword.
I am?
And for 3 reasons, yes, you are. So if I move into my community, what do I get to do?
If you move into your community?
I get to vote.
Oh.
I get to vote. Which means what? If you got a whole bunch of police officers in the same community.
Huh. I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one thing. So you might be talking about a whole community that right now has shared values and beliefs. Now you bring all these other people in with a whole different set of values and shared beliefs who are probably way more cohesive. They can probably go out and vote and the magnitude to influence what they want to happen in the community.
Okay, fair.
Not necessarily what you want to happen in the community.
Okay, fair. But what about hourly requirements to go out into the community?
No, that's good, but at the same time, you still gotta pay us. Unless we want to volunteer. You know what I mean? If you're requiring it, you gotta pay us. It's still a profession. You know what I mean?
That's fine.
That's what I'm, but here's the thing. Over the course of this year and last year, it was all about
decrease the budget.
Defunding or reallocating funds.
Yeah.
Right? So you want these trainings, you want this requirement to do X, Y, and Z, but you still gotta pay us. So how are you gonna require something but not pay the person?
But is that even happening with all the budget and the money that police departments have?
No, it was just my idea.
So personally, our budget wasn't cut. We got a raise. But that's because violence increased astronomically because we put our foot off the pedal with everything that was going on. So personally, it's not happening where I'm at. Other places you see it happening, and you see the other side of that. You know, that's not fake media. That's the truth. That's what happens when you when you stop putting law enforcement resources in the.
So with like after like all the
But yeah, the requirement of community service is a great idea.
so has there ever been a protest that you had to work that you felt that you actually agreed with the protesters on, but you might have felt conflicted
Good
from
question.
having to do your job? I'm not talking about like riots or anything. I'm just talking about just straight protesting.
You guys got to realize what time I came in. 2014. Or this thing. Right? I came on the job into protest. I'm not necessarily I'm not gonna say desensitized, that's the wrong word. I know what my role is in a protest.
Yeah.
Policy wise. It's not my job to be when I'm in uniform. It's not my job to be on one side or the other at that point in time. My only job at that point is to protect the public. Everyone in the public. That's my only job, right? Me having an opinion at that point, although I do have one in my head, either for or against, right? That's not the thing that's in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, but you're good at your
That's
job.
when mistakes happen. That's when guys.
Like, don't you think there are people on the job
essentially,
who let it come to the forefront in those moments? Like, there must be people on the job.
Yeah, of course. Yes. I'm not. This is like I said, disclaimer. This, I can't speak for all officers, right? But obviously, they're going to let their personal biases and opinions come out, especially with these emotionally charged things going on, especially in the protest. If people talk so much trash in protest, there's not a trash talk that I've heard in protest.
What do you think about specifically when police are called for mental health situations or crises? I've heard the idea tossed around of like also sending social workers to those types of situations. I'm a social worker, so like
do that. Yeah.
You already do that.
I already do it.
That's what I thought. And I guess my question is,
we already do it.
Yeah.
So every department is basically different with like their policies.
Every department is basically different, but I can't say the majority because I don't know, but a good department already has someone on call to go.
Okay.
Family services, social services, clinical people to commit people to the hospital if we need to.
Right.
These are all things that are already done. And the notion that they can go by themselves is crazy.
No way. I would never in my life. And I was a social worker.
Exactly. It's just, you know what? If we could not take the call, that's fine because we're already busy enough. But it's just not something it's not safe.
What do you think the misconceptions and stigmas of being a Black police officer are? Like, I think the police officer thing is like, I mean, you can speak to that if you'd like, but I'm really interested in, you said people ask you about this all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, so like the notion that me being a police officer automatically means I'm against Black people as a Black man. Like, I'm hearing protests like, wait, how could you do that job and you're Black? Like, what do you mean? I don't understand the question. I'm confused. How can I gotta put food on the table. I thought I was part of the change. I took this role on to start doing different. What? None of us are supposed to work in these departments that we're trying to change? That makes no sense. What? Out here doing a protest, quit your job. So if all the Black people quit, who you got? Who's your man? Who? You can't even cross your fingers to hope one of us don't show up. I don't get that. I don't get that notion. That stigma and misconception. There's also the stigma of that, or the notion or belief that there's this drastic change I have to make when I put my uniform. There's no change. I'm me. and I'm going to deal with being black and a police officer as I would deal with it, just like someone else would. And we're not going to. It's not like we're all made in a factory and we're going to react the same. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're black, but we're different. I'm not the same as someone else. You know? Like I know people in my department who were out way harder for BLM than I. You know? Some of them agree with everything. I don't agree with everything. Say that. I don't agree with everything. You know?
I have another question. So, hopefully, I don't sound ignorant when I ask this, but
all of these questions have been
all
ignorant.
of these questions are ignorant. Yeah. So, like, as a black person, right? We were just talking about this in the interview right before this, and just like sometimes the fear of doing things such as running at night or running at all in your community, or just like things where we've seen things can happen. So that's like a fear that as a black person I have, that I fear for like my husband when he's out at night. It's like, it's not like something bad is going to happen all the time, but there's just this lingering uneasiness until that loved one comes home, right? So my question is, for your family and even for you as a person, like if you just want to like momentarily step out of the role of police officer and answer this question from the perspective of you as a person, is there that same fear potentially for you or your wife or at some point your future children? Like, is that as a black man still a fear for you, even though you are trained to protect your family, but you might not be with your wife all the time? Do you know what I mean? So
wasn't a fear ever?
I'm wondering what that dynamic is like for you.
I'm going to stay in the police officer frame because it's interesting you brought that up. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, like black people walking alone or running their night and stuff like that, you can legitimize that. There's been, I don't know how frequent it is, but I know definitely at particular times at night, there'll be dispatch calls. Like if you're in a affluent neighborhood or down Caucasian, there would be dispatch calls for a black male walking in this area, right in this area.
See?
But the overall, so it's a legitimate thing. But the overall consensus from the officer hearing it on the radio, we need to consider how we're not saying like, oh my God, I need to get there as fast as possible. Like, he's definitely doing something. It's more or less, and as in like, what else is he doing? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're wasting my time. You know, I was busy doing other things. I don't want to drive there and watch. I be this person for walking down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a consensus that we're sitting there waiting for that car. Oh, black male. Ooh, is he running or walking? Ah, yes, let's go. You know what I mean? It's not like that. We're more annoyed than anything about those calls. You know what I mean? I don't know if dispatch notices that. They had to notice it by now. How ignorant and ridiculous sounds over the air when they come up. Yeah. Such and such type of person walking or running or doing whatever type of not legal activity we're doing. You know? And the call is always anonymous, just to point out.
Of course. Cowards.
Yeah, but now getting off of that, listen, it would be arrogant of me to say I'm not beautiful. You know? I know what color my skin is. I know what color my white skin is. I know what color my child skin color will be, unless something happens that I don't know about. You caught that?
You get beat up for this.
And I'm driving. Even if I'm driving in the place that I work, I still get that. You know what I mean? I've been pulled over where I work. You know,
that's crazy.
I mean, that initial interaction is a little easier for me. You know, but before that, it is what it is. Like I know, like there's not something printed on me that says like, hey, I'm black, but hey, also police officer. You know.
So, like, if you had to propose a solution, not the solution to systemic racism in America, but like a solution to repairing the relationship between police officers and Black America, or maybe even a starting point, a stepping stone, anything that, if you had a perfect world, what do you think would be helpful? Everyone deleting social media.
No. Social media isn't the issue. It's the people utilize it.
Yeah.
My first proposal will be education on both sides, early and often. So, like, and I mean starting in high school.
I thought you meant earlier than that.
I mean, the thing with kids is kids are so, they see everything as innocent unless they're influenced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the problem.
But like that high school range of it, they're still kids with it. Yes, I'm talking about 13 and under. See most things as like go lucky, innocent, like I love everyone. Until like they start getting social media bombs thrown at them. Hate this person, love this person. Be careful of this because this always happens. These always and never sentences are never good because that's not the case. There's always a gray area or there's always an exception, right? But I would say education for police officers early and often. We don't get enough of it, but that costs money. That costs money or self motivation. And then even in high school, with not just Black Americans, but all Americans, with how you deal with police officers and those initial checks and balances you need to know about. Like you get pulled over, you need to know. Like if you drive a car, you should understand what probable cause, reasonable suspicion. You should understand the concepts of those things.
Yeah.
Just as much as the police officer should understand it. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily meaning you can't stop what the police officer is doing, but you can at least you won't have such a adverse reaction to what they're doing, and it won't cause whatever situation.
Right. Right.
Because the first thing most people need to understand is just because the police officer is doing something, that's not the end all be all. Because that's what lawyers are for. The checks and balances of criminal justice system. It's supposed to get to that point where the court says this was totally out of line. And then from there you can do what you need to do. You know what I mean? You can go to internal affairs. You can make a complaint on that police officer if you need to. You know? And there is a big misconception that police officers don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. What actually happens?
That is the biggest misconception. So police officers do get in trouble. We just don't tell y'all the ending result for legal reasons. Because if we did that, people would just sue us forever. We just don't tell you the particulars of how they got punished. But police officers always get punished.
Is there any threshold?
Informally and formally.
Okay, I get what you're
saying.
saying.
Very important. That's very important to know. Okay? So don't ever think the police officers not getting punished.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think they're held accountable. That's what my question earlier. Like,
they're held accountable by their peers and they're held accountable by the administration.
Okay.
Especially in these times.
Well, my question to that is, because the belief or the stigma is, you know, if a police officer has they did wrong so many times or whatever, and they get fired from their department for whatever reason, they can go to another department in the next town over, blah, blah, blah. This is what we hear, right? I guess I need clarity on that. And also like, how many, so you're saying there's formal and informal punishment. How many times do you have to receive formal punishment before it's like, okay, it's time for you to be let go of this position? Because there are instances where you see police officers who get to a point and it's like they had this, and this all on their internal whatever.
So there's two types of discipline. Okay? And this is breaking it down for you guys because there's all these misconceptions and it's just statements. There's two types of discipline. There's negative discipline and then there's positive discipline. So like if I do something wrong and they decide to positively discipline me, I might get a letter which stays in my file and they're going to train me. So they're going to train me instead of negative discipline. I'll get into that after. So I'll have to retrain in something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's a formal punishment. Positive discipline. Now informally, that officer is going to be embarrassed and shamed and probably ridiculed in his face or her face and behind her back by her peers because they're getting retrained on something they probably were trained on during academy or probably do every day in the job. And they're going back to the academy to learn it and go over it again. All right. Most officers don't like doing that. You got to be very prideful of our work, and getting sent back to retrain on some basic stuff is embarrassing. Now, negative discipline. So negative discipline is basically when you're suspended or you receive a written reprimand or you receive suspension without pay. All right, you see kind of the differences there with that. Negative discipline takes a progressive approach. So like you're not gonna someone does something wrong, right? You're not gonna say they're in a car accident or something like that. You're not gonna automatically say, "Oh, you got a car accident," you need to fire you, unless it's something so negligent
excessive
or reckless.
Yeah.
You're not even gonna consider firing, right? You're gonna first give me a warning, written warning. If I get another accident, then it's gonna be a written reprimand, and you're gonna make me walk or something like that. I can't drive for like a certain time. And say I get in a third accident, and you might say, okay, something's wrong here. Now we're gonna order you to take a drug test, and you're walking, and we're gonna suspend you without pay. So that's why when you see officers have all these things, it's because you can't just straight up fire someone in a union. You gotta make a case for that. They're not fit for the job. It's just like in your company, they can't just fire you. They gotta have a legitimate reason.
Right.
So when people are saying like, oh, why do they have all these things? Anyone who gets fired has all these things. It's just more impactful because it's policing. So like it might be like a citizen complaint or something like that. It's part of our job. It's like if we got fired from a totality of things or did something like negligently wrong and you see all these lines of things in our files, because it stays in our file, that's the punishment. It's supposed to be in our file. So here's to your next question. If we leave the department and try to go to another one, they ask for your file because they want to see what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the department's going to think when they say, oh, he got a lot of things, he or she got a lot of citizen complaints in the file? I don't know. You know, they're not going to hire you. There's not people that want to be police officers. I don't know about now, but before, they're not going to hire the person with 10 different citizen complaints in their file compared to someone who's new, who they can train on how to act right, or someone who had maybe one and it was unfounded.
Okay, so are you telling me that citizen complaints can actually go a long way? Like if you have a bad experience, you should call your local police department and file a complaint?
If it's sustained, it stays in their file forever.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a really great thing people don't know about. Not that they don't know about, but they don't utilize enough.
Yeah, just call. Just call. If it's found, it stays in your file. And then you're reprimanded. You get punished. Something happened.
Yeah, but a lot of people might think that they might be scared. They think that an officer might come back for them. I don't say a lot of people, but I think that could be a fear.
You have to realize this is the person's income. They're not coming for you. They can't. I know you never know. My thing is, it's not the normal thing that's gonna happen.
I watch too much television.
It's not the normal thing. I'm not gonna say it. Like I said, I stay out of the.
It's a minority, yeah.
Always and never. So I'm not gonna say it's never gonna happen, but it's not likely.
I got you. That makes sense.
It's not something that's likely. You know what I mean? And if you live within that community, they're actually probably gonna start tippy-toeing around because they know that you will actually put in their complaint if they're out of line.
So they want to stay away.
Well, not yeah. Well, one and two, they'll make sure they do what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the community has more control than they actually think, you know? And I know that everyone's doing all these protests, but I forget what class it was, but one of the main things to do before you mobilize was legitimately educate yourself on the steps to actually completing whatever you're protesting about, completing the goals of whatever the protest is.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I think education on both sides.
I mean, I don't really read up on all the BLM stuff, but most of the protests I've heard, the things they ask for are ridiculous. Last one I was in, the girl was on the megaphone screaming like defund it by 70%. 70%? What are you talking about? Like, if you even touch my salary, I'm leaving. And I'm the educated one.
No, 78% is a lot.
I don't get it. Like, people think, oh, if we touch their pockets, the bad ones will leave. So will the good ones.
Fair.
So will the good ones.
This is a lot.
I'm not going to do this crazy ass job for chips. What?
I don't blame you neither because it is a tough job.
That's what I was gonna say.
I appreciate you. I appreciate police officers.
I don't love my job that much.
Who does?
They say like, oh, I'm you know what? I lost some money, but I'm going to stay because I love making a difference every day. I can make a difference somewhere else. I can make a difference somewhere else. Don't play with me.
While getting paid.
You know what I mean? Don't play. Like, I'm open to ideas, but don't touch my pockets.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm a police officer, but there's other aspects of my life. I want to do other things too. I need money for that. I need a stable salary. Don't touch it. You know? Yeah, it's my I don't think people really think about what they're saying when they say that. I just don't. Mind-boggling. But
yeah, I think overall it's important for every individual, as you said, to educate themselves on both sides of the issues, not just on the side that you support, even if you do support one side. But I also think like it is important to remember, and it's important to remind myself, which is why I'm grateful that I know people like you and other good police officers in the community, that like I like to think the majority is good. I obviously am not naive to racist and biased cops that exist. But overall, like the entire, I feel like BLM movement in terms of just reforming our criminal justice system, it goes way beyond cops. It goes way beyond, you know, this specific cop or this specific department. It's
deeper.
400 years of systemic racism, which goes past police departments. It goes into incarceration. It's like really deeper. Yeah, legislation. It's really just deeper than what people think it is as like Blue Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter. But like, I will just say, because we're friends, I really think the Blue Lives Matter slogan is bullshit. But that's just my personal opinion, because I don't feel like people are blue.
It is stupid. I think it's stupid.
People are not blue. Blue is a uniform you put on. So
I understand the concept of what they're trying to say. But I think that social media, I feel like social media caused that. The BLM was so fired up and so ready to like come out with some type of opposition to advertise that they just came up with that.
Yeah.
To catch eyes.
They caught a wave.
Your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's more of it can be stupid, right? But you know what they stand for and you know who they are, right? When they come out, it's not a matter of you agreeing if it's a good name or not, right? It catches your opinion and it catches your attention. That's the point of it. just like the same. That's just like Black Lives Matter, where they say like, oh, why do only Black Lives matter? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Same. The point of it is to catch the person's attention to like what the reason about.
Well, now, I mean,
Because either way, it's some type of education. Even if they disagree with it, they still have to put consideration to it.
Yeah.
no, we definitely appreciate you, like, on coming on the platform, sharing your story, speaking transparently and truthfully, and just doing your job. I know it's a tough job. Always got to watch your back.
Facts.
And I feel like just a lot of people.
It is, but
yeah, a lot of people don't understand like what y'all actually go through and the respect that y'all deserve because of some bad apples. So just want to say thank you and we appreciate you.
I appreciate it. But like to speak on that, is if you do what you're supposed to do on this job, it's not only those crazy situations are probably like the hardest. You can make it easier for yourself. Like if I come on the scene with the right attitude, more likely than not, it might take a little longer, but it's not gonna chaotic, crazy situation.
We need more police officers like you.
Yeah, we need more of you. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. I know we've taken up now an hour plus of your time, and internet connection in my house is janky today. But as Jared said, we appreciate you, and usually we say drop all your things, drop all your socials, but that doesn't apply here. So we will just, if you have any questions, you can't ask them, people. Sorry.
Yeah, ask us on Instagram.
DM us and we'll relay them.
We'll get the answers for you.
But you're welcome back anytime. Any other topic that you want to talk about non-anonymously, you're always welcome here. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you guys know what to do. If you like this episode and this podcast, go ahead and give us a rating, give us a review, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, Done With Adulting Pod. Also, Twitter, Done WTH Adulting.
All right. Thanks again.
Mr. Officer.
Mr. Officer.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.